It's time now for Movie Spotlight, our Friday feature reviewing some of the latest releases at the Korean box office and online. And this week, our critics are joining us via video call. First, we have Jason Bechervaise. Jason, hello. It's good to see you.
Hello from Hong Kong.
Yes, and we also have Darcy Paquet with us as well, also from Hong Kong. Hello to you too.
Hi, it's good to see you.
Yes, we are speaking to you both via video call today because, as you said, we are both in Hong Kong. And no, our critics are not on holiday together, although that would have been very cute. But they are both presenting in an academic conference this week titled The Origins of the South Korean Film Renaissance. Jason, before we introduce this week's films, do you want to quickly tell our listeners a bit about this event?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a 3-day conference here in Hong Kong. It's titled The Origins of the South Korean Film Renaissance. It's organized by Lingham University here in Hong Kong and also University of Washington in the US. And it's focusing on this period in the 90s and early 2000s. I presented a paper on Bong Joon Ho's Barking Dogs Never Bite, which was released in 2000. So a lot of interesting presentations and papers that have been delivered over the past couple of days. It's got me thinking somewhat and trying to delve into further research. And it's a really well-run, very informative event, and lots of very talented speakers, including, might I add, Darcy, Paquet, who presented in the first panel with me. He's talking about the Korea's kind of global tours. So lots to kind of get your teeth into here.
Sure, well, it sounds like a fascinating event, and Hong Kong is very lucky to have you both there, and I'm sure your talks were fascinating as well. But anyway, we have a job to do, and that is, of course, to review some new releases. Let's get into them now. Our first film this week is an independent feature about a North Korean defector. It's called A Tour Guide, and the Korean title is 믿을 수 있는 사람. It is a debut by director Kwak Eun-mi, and it won a Best Actor award at the Jeonju Film Festival this May, and it's also been invited to the New York Asian Film Festival, the Vancouver Film Festival, and the Florence Korean Film Festival as well. It's now screening in theatres in Korea. Darcy, can you introduce this film for us?
Sure. It's, very much focused on this central character whose name is Han Young. She originally escaped from North Korea together with her brother and spent a number of years in China. She learned how to speak Chinese before eventually moving on to South Korea, where she hopes for a better life. Being bilingual, she decides to get certified to give tour guides or to give tours to Chinese tourists. And, there are various kind of hurdles involved in that, but she's making some progress. And then the Chinese tours start to shut down in the wake of the 2017 THAAD issue. And at the same time, her brother's also disappeared. So, she's dealing with various struggles, but it's a story about her experiences in Seoul.
Right, so it's about the struggle of a North Korean defector adjusting to life in South Korea. Jason, it sounds like a very compelling setup, especially for people who are interested in the issue of North Korean defectors. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I quite liked it. I saw it in Jeonju earlier on this year. It certainly follows a similar trend we've seen in indie films over the past 10, 15 years, tackling focusing on North Korean defectors, largely abandoned by society. We see that in this film. I think what I liked about this is how, without revealing too much, how the two of the central characters, or two of the characters in the film, including the lead and the character's brother as well. I suppose in a sense they're able to take charge of the narrative, and they're victims of a very unfair society. It's very difficult for them to kind of find success or have a comfortable life in Korea. But I like that. I mean, the brother essentially he wants to get back to North Korea. He's not happy in the South, and he wants to take charge of what he wants to be able to be in control of his decisions. And we see that with her as well later on in the film. It's typical of a CAFA production. This is Korean Academy of Film Arts. It's well produced. Performances are strong. Nothing necessarily, new in terms of breaking new ground, but I would say it was pretty decent overall.
Right, so a well put together drama, essentially. Darcy, what did you make of it, especially the performances? Because as we mentioned, the lead actress, Ishal, won the Best Actor Award at Jeonju this year. Was it a deserving choice?
Yes, I do think it was. I'm kind of a fan of this actress. She's still
Me
at a
too.
very early stage in her career. People might know her from television. She was in a TV drama called Less Than Evil or 나쁜 형사. In terms of film, she's done a lot of independent stuff.
Mm.
Her lead roles have come in, quite I don't know, small films, I guess you would say, or films that haven't gotten a big audience. But she's been great in all of them. So I kind of see her as someone who, in the future, may kind of break out to wider consciousness. But in this film, she's very, she's on the screen almost all the time. So it's one of these performances where we really kind of get into her character and kind of feel all the nuances of what she's going through. And she's both a likable character, but not too simplistic in a way. Like she's uh, complicated enough that we get to see, various sides of her. Um, and yeah, so in that sense, it's an interesting watch and a great performance.
Right, it does sound like quite an affecting film, and one I'd be interested to check out as well. Once again, it's called A Tour Guide, and it's out now in Korean theatres. Our second film this week is a new documentary titled Yellow Door 90s Lo-Fi Film Club. The Korean title is 노란문 세기말 시네필 다이어리, and it's about a film club in early 1990s Korea. Its members, which included a young Bong Joon Ho as well, were representative of a passion for film that reached particularly intense levels in that era. So it's actually quite fitting that you two are at a conference celebrating perhaps that era as well. It premiered at last month's Busan International Film Festival and is now streaming on Netflix. So Jason, can you give us the introduction to this one?
Yes, and with pleasure. Yeah, I saw this film at the Busan Film Festival that recently wrapped up, and it was my last screening. And I was at the end of I was basically running out of energy. I was running out of gas. I was like, "Shall I go and watch this movie? It's going to be available on Netflix anyway." I was like, "No, I'm going to go," because this is a movie that features Bong Joon Ho, and as our listeners, our wonderful listeners, probably know, I'm a bit of a fan. So yeah, this film is directed by Lee Hyuk-dae. And what it does is it's called Yellow Door, and it focuses on this film club in the 1990s that included a member called Bong Joon Ho. So a somewhat famous figure right now. And so the film, I mean, initially, how it was sold was it was basically it was basically trying to track down his first film, his first animated film that no one's seen other than those that are part of this club called Yellow Door. So this movie, Looking for Paradise, I had never seen it, so I was really curious. But it's actually a bit more than that. I mean, of course, they talk about this film, and you see clips from this kind of very kind of low budget animated movie that Bong put together, but it features many of his kind of characteristics that we'll see later on in his career. But it kind of he interviews all the members of the group, and clearly they have a lot of respect for each other. They're very close as friends. They've also don't seem to have spent much time with each other for quite a period of time, so it's a bit of a reunion. And what I liked about it was just the energy, the kind of passion for cinema, and that's really evident, and uh, that's something true of Bong Joon-ho, but it's also true of the others. And I think it also contextualizes um, the film within this period of the I say film, but this club within the period of the 1990s, which is a significant period for Korean cinema, and that's what we're talking about at this conference.
Sure, Jason, this sounds like a film that was tailor-made for you.
Hit for me. And I loved it.
Darcy, does sound like a fascinating film, but I also wonder if it might be quite niche in some ways. What do you think about the film, and will it appeal to non-experts of Korean cinema as well, do you think?
I mean, I think there are things that people can find interesting in this film, even if they're not familiar with Korea or with Korean cinema. Because, I mean, partly it's a story about technology and the fact that, in the early 1990s, it was difficult to get access to a wide range of films. And this was following on, several decades in which, in Korea, they kind of restricted the number of foreign films that screened in Korea. And so as a result, it was mostly just Hollywood films that were screened. And in the 90s, you had a whole generation that was discovering world cinema, that was discovering cinema history. But compared to now, where, it's really easy to access anything, it was like this adventure to try to track down these films that you'd read about in books. And, people would be so curious to watch this particular scene that was described in this journal article. And so they, would go out to different markets, and when they'd find a copy of a VHS tape, they'd make their own copy, they'd start to build their own small archives, basically. And this club is one example, but there are actually many such clubs around Korea at that time. And, it brings back just a sense of kind of the relationship between, your passion for a certain type of hobby or something like that. And, sometimes when you get access to everything that you want, like, it seems like it's a great thing, but actually it kind of lessens a bit of your passion. And having some kind of a lack drives your passion more, so that you go out and you search for things. And we see that dynamic in this film, and so it's interesting to connect that to like the later careers of Korean directors and just in general, like Korea's love for cinema.
It does seem like a film for film lovers, especially, Jason.
Yes, indeed. But yeah, just kind of piggybacking on one of Darcy's earlier points, talking about technology, and I think one of the kind of interesting stories I liked in the film was Bong Joon Ho was able to, he got these videos, and they were VCR, video cassette recorders, and he was able to, they had this kind of dial where they could rewind. And he basically was watching The Godfather, and what it allowed him to do was he could go back to a scene and then go back to it and keep rewinding, and watch it almost in slow motion. So yeah, it was a real period of discovery for him and for others, watching films. And so yes, it is for cinephiles, but at the same time, it's really accessible. It's not. I mean, I'll show it to my students, of course. But there's a lot in there, and it's just a lot of fun. So you don't have to be a Korean cinema fan to enjoy it.
Right, so once again, it's called Yellow Door 90s Lo-Fi Film Club, and it's available on Netflix. That's where we'll wrap it up this week. Jason, Darcy, as always, thank you for your reviews, and have fun with the rest of your time in Hong Kong.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for having us, as always.